Imagine, if you will, a man who possessed absolute power over one of the greatest empires in human history, yet spent his quiet moments contemplating the very nature of happiness and human suffering. This was Marcus Aurelius, the last of Rome's so-called five good emperors, who ruled from 161 to 180 CE during what historians call the height of the Roman Empire's golden age. But Marcus Aurelius was no ordinary ruler. While other emperors built monuments to their glory or conquered distant lands for fame, this remarkable man built something far more enduring. A philosophy of life that continues to guide millions of people nearly 2,000 years later. In the solitude of his military tent, during the brutal Marco-Mannic Wars along the Danube frontier, he penned what would become one of history's most profound works on human happiness and well-being: his Meditations. What makes Marcus Aurelius truly extraordinary is this paradox. Here was a man who had everything the ancient world could offer: unlimited wealth, absolute authority, the finest education, and the respect of his subjects. Yet he understood that true happiness could never be found in external circumstances. His personal writings reveal a soul wrestling with the same fundamental questions that plague us today. What does it mean to live a good life? How do we find contentment in an uncertain world? Can we achieve lasting happiness when everything around us is constantly changing? The Meditations were never intended for publication. They were Marcus's private journal, his personal dialogue with himself about virtue, mortality, and the art of living well. Written in Greek during long military campaigns, these intimate reflections offer us an unprecedented glimpse into the mind of a man who understood that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself. He wrote not as an emperor commanding his subjects, but as a student of life, humbly seeking wisdom about happiness and human flourishing. What emerges from these pages is a revolutionary understanding of happiness, one that challenges everything our modern world tells us about success and well-being. Marcus Aurelius discovered that genuine contentment comes not from acquiring more possessions, achieving higher status, or even from the praise of others, but from something far more profound and accessible to every human being: the cultivation of virtue, the acceptance of what we cannot control, and the disciplined focus on what truly lies within our power. In our age of social media, constant comparison, and endless pursuit of external validation, Marcus Aurelius's insights about happiness feel remarkably contemporary. His teachings offer a timeless antidote to anxiety, a practical philosophy for finding peace amidst chaos, and a roadmap to authentic well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances beyond our control. Today, we'll explore how this ancient emperor's profound reflections on happiness can transform our modern understanding of what it means to live a truly fulfilling life. To truly understand Marcus Aurelius's revolutionary approach to happiness, we must first grasp the philosophical foundation upon which his entire worldview rested: Stoicism. This wasn't merely an academic exercise for the emperor. It was his practical toolkit for navigating the complexities of both ruling an empire and maintaining inner peace amidst the chaos of human existence. Stoicism, founded in ancient Athens around 300 BCE, taught that happiness, or what the Stoics called eudaimonia, could only be achieved through virtue and wisdom, never through external circumstances. But Marcus Aurelius took this ancient philosophy and refined it through the crucible of real-world experience. Unlike philosophers who theorize from comfortable academies, he tested these principles while making life and death decisions for millions of people, while losing children to plague, while facing betrayal from trusted generals, and while confronting his own mortality on distant battlefields. In his Meditations, Marcus writes with striking honesty, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This wasn't empty optimism from a man insulated by privilege. This was hard-won wisdom from someone who had experienced the full spectrum of human joy and suffering. He understood that external events, no matter how pleasant or painful, are fundamentally neutral. What transforms them into sources of happiness or misery is entirely our response to them. The emperor's Stoic philosophy centered on a deceptively simple but profoundly transformative principle: the dichotomy of control. Marcus constantly reminded himself that there are only two categories of things in life: those within our control and those beyond it. Within our control lie our thoughts, our judgments, our values, and our responses to events. Beyond our control lie virtually everything else: other people's actions, natural disasters, illness, death, and even the consequences of our own choices once we've made them. This insight becomes the cornerstone of Marcus's approach to happiness. He writes, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the past and future don't matter, but because the present moment is the only place where we can actually exercise our power to choose our response. When we worry about future events we cannot control or ruminate over past mistakes we cannot change, we surrender our happiness to forces beyond our influence. But when we focus our attention on our present choices, how we interpret events, what values we embody, how we treat others, we reclaim our fundamental freedom." For Marcus Aurelius, this wasn't abstract philosophy but daily practice. Each morning, he would remind himself that he would encounter difficult people, unexpected setbacks, and painful losses. But rather than viewing this as pessimism, he saw it as preparation, mental training that would allow him to respond with virtue rather than react with emotion. He understood that happiness isn't the absence of difficulties, it's the presence of wisdom in how we meet those difficulties. Perhaps most remarkably, Marcus applied this philosophy to his own position of absolute power. While other rulers might have seen their authority as proof of their superiority, Marcus viewed it as a test of his character. He writes, "Remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Even as emperor, he recognized that his happiness couldn't come from his status, his wealth, or the obedience of his subjects. It could only come from his commitment to virtue, justice, and wisdom. This Stoic foundation provided Marcus Aurelius with something far more valuable than any external achievement: unshakable inner freedom. No matter what circumstances he faced, he possessed the tools to maintain his equanimity and find meaning in his response to life's challenges. This inner freedom that Marcus Aurelius cultivated through Stoic principles found its most practical expression in what we might today call mindfulness, though the emperor approached it with a sophistication that modern self-help rarely achieves. For Marcus, living in the present wasn't about escaping reality or achieving some blissful state of detachment. Instead, it was about engaging more fully with life by stripping away the mental noise that prevents us from seeing clearly and responding wisely. In his meditations, Marcus repeatedly returns to this theme of presence with an urgency that reveals just how challenging and essential he found this practice. "Confine yourself to the present," he writes, but then goes deeper. Ask yourself at every moment, is this something that's up to me or not? This wasn't passive acceptance, but active discernment. The emperor understood that our minds naturally drift toward regret about the past and anxiety about the future, creating a kind of temporal exile where we're never fully alive to the only moment we can actually influence. Consider the extraordinary circumstances in which Marcus developed this practice. As emperor, His days were filled with reports of plague devastating his territories, barbarian tribes threatening the frontiers, political conspiracies within his own court, and the constant pressure of decisions that would affect millions of lives. Any normal person would be overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of past consequences and future implications of every choice. Yet Marcus trained himself to approach each situation with what he called the discipline of perception, seeing things exactly as they are, without the distortion of emotional projection or wishful thinking. He writes with remarkable psychological insight, "Today I escaped anxiety," or "No, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside." This represents a revolutionary understanding of emotional experience. Marcus recognized that our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about those events. When he received news of military defeats or personal losses, he practiced seeing these as facts to be addressed rather than catastrophes to be endured. This wasn't emotional numbness, but emotional clarity, the ability to feel appropriately without being overwhelmed by feelings. The emperor's approach to presence also involved what he called the view from above, a mental exercise where he would imagine looking down at his current situation from a cosmic perspective. When facing a particularly challenging decision or painful experience, he would remind himself that this moment, however intense it seemed, was just one small part of a vast, interconnected whole. This wasn't meant to diminish the importance of his choices, but to free him from the paralyzing weight of believing that everything depended on achieving perfect outcomes. Marcus developed specific mental techniques for maintaining this present moment awareness throughout his demanding days. He would begin each morning by reminding himself of his mortality, not morbidly, but as a way of focusing on what truly mattered. "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live," he wrote. This daily confrontation with the finite nature of life helped him prioritize his attention and energy on what he could actually control and influence. Perhaps most remarkably, Marcus applied this practice of presence to his relationships with difficult people, and as emperor, he encountered plenty of them. Rather than allowing his mind to build elaborate narratives about people's motivations or rehearse arguments for future confrontations, he trained himself to meet each person fresh in each encounter. He writes, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions." This wasn't naive optimism, but strategic wisdom. He understood that how he perceived others would directly influence how effectively he could work with them. The emperor's practice of presence extended even to physical sensations and daily activities. He would eat, walk, and even conduct state business with deliberate attention, using these routine activities as opportunities to strengthen his capacity for awareness. This wasn't about achieving some special state of consciousness, but about developing the mental muscle memory that would allow him to remain centered during genuine crises. Through this disciplined cultivation of presence, Marcus Aurelius discovered something profound: that happiness isn't something we achieve, but something we practice, moment by moment, choice by choice.